Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are cracking open the MPP, the Manual of Patent Examining Procedure, specifically Chapter 1400 on correcting patents.
That's right.
Our mission, really, is to get into MPP Section 1412, which deals with the content of claims you can have in a reissue application. We want to figure out, can you actually fix a claim that wasn't quite right?
Yeah.
Or are there hard limits?
Oh, there are definitely limits. That's the whole point of Section 1412. Reissue is this safety valve the law gives you to fix genuine mistakes. But it's not a free-for-all. The big question hanging over it is your fix still tied to what you originally invented and disclosed? Or are you, maybe accidentally, maybe not, trying to get back something you deliberately gave up years ago to get the patent in the first place?
That's the tension.
Yeah.
Okay. So strategy, not just rules. Before we jump into the deep end, though, just a quick but really important thank you.
Yeah.
We want to give a special thanks to Mike Shepard, our creative director. He's the one who organized this whole audio series covering the MP.
Absolutely. Big thanks to Mike. And speaking of setup, we have our usual disclaimer for you, the listener.
Always important.
This summary, it was put together using AI tools like ChatGPT and Notebook LM. It's meant for education, just general info. It is not legal advice, seriously.
Yep, definitely not.
For the real deal, the authoritative guidance, you absolutely need to consult the official MPP itself or talk to a qualified instructor or, of course, a registered patent practitioner.
Got it. Okay, let's dive in. Reissue applications.
Yeah.
Often the goal is broadening the claims, right? Covering something missed. But what does broadening actually mean, legally speaking?
Yeah, the MPP, Section 1412.03, gives a pretty precise definition. A reissue claim is officially broadened if it covers more ground than the broadest claim you originally got patented.
Okay.
And that happens in basically two ways. One, you completely remove a limitation that was in all the original claims. Poof, it's gone. Or two, you keep a limitation, but you phrase it more broadly in the reissue claim compared to how it was in the original. So maybe instead of a copper wire, it becomes a metallic wire. If it covers more stuff, it's broader. Simple as that, definition-wise.
That definition sets the stage.
Yeah.
But hold on, before we even get to broadening or like the recapture doctrine everyone talks about,
Yeah.
Isn't there a more fundamental check? Like, whatever you claim in reissue has to have been actually described in the original patent document.
100%. That's the bedrock. Reissue isn't for inventing new things after the fact.
Right.
Examiners have to look at the entire original specification drawings, descriptions, everything, not just the old claims.
Oh.
They're asking, what did the inventor objectively disclose as their invention back then? The new claims have to stick to that same general invention.
And the MPP mentions some key court cases here, right? Like Amos or Antares Pharma v. Medac. What do they tell us?
They really drive home that point. It's not enough for the new claims to just be related to the old stuff. They have to be clearly supported as like a distinct invention within that original disclosure.
Okay.
So the Antares example is pretty good. Say the original patent only ever talked about a jet injector, that specific type. The reissue then tries to claim generic injectors that happen to have some safety features also mentioned in the patent. The courts might say no because the original document never really treated those safety features as their own separate invention. They were always tied to the jet injector context. You didn't describe safety features for any injector back then.
Got it. So if the original document presented A and B as basically inseparable, you can't just use reissue to claim B on its own later. The original writing has to show B was conceived as its own thing.
Exactly. Or another example, if the spec clearly says this composition isn't suitable for molding, well, you can't then file a reissue claiming that exact composition in a molded form. The original disclosure itself blocks you.
Okay, that original disclosure requirement is key. Now let's tackle something that sounds like it might be an exception, but maybe isn't. Overlooked aspects. This sounds confusing because I thought if you didn't claim it, you lost it. But MPP Section 3012.01 says these aren't subject to recapture analysis. Why?
Yeah, this is a really important distinction. Overlooked aspects refers to things like separate inventions, maybe different embodiments or species that were fully described in the original application. They just never got claimed.
So, described but forgotten.
Pretty much. The key difference is there was no argument with the examiner about them. No rejection, no amendment, no statement saying, okay, I'll give this up to get that allowed. It wasn't surrendered during prosecution.
The lack of intentional surrender, that's the difference. It was just missed, not traded away.
Exactly. Think of the ion implantation example sometimes used. Maybe the original application described both, say, molten bath ion implantation and plasma ion implantation. fully describe both. But for whatever reason, they only pursued claims to the molten bath version. Later, they realized, oops, we never claimed the plasma version. That plasma version might be an overlooked aspect. Since it was described but never actively surrendered, trying to claim it in reissue wouldn't automatically trigger recapture.
Okay.
But, and this is crucial, it still has to meet that first hurdle we talked about, was the plasma version clearly described as a separate viable invention in the original disclosure? The overlooked aspect rule gets you past recapture, but not past the basic disclosure requirement.
Right, okay. That clarifies things. It's an avenue for genuine oversights, not a loophole for things you argued away. Okay, now let's get to the main event. The doctrine of recapture, this is the big one, right? The rule that stops you reclaiming stuff you intentionally ditched to get the patent proved.
This is definitely the minefield. Recapture is all about honoring the deal you struck with the patent office during the original examination. Yeah. If the examiner rejected your claims based on prior art, and you specifically added, let's say, limitation X to your claims, and then argued successfully that X made your invention patentable over that art, well, you made a bargain. You surrendered the scope that didn't have X.
So you can't just change your mind later.
Exactly. You can't use reissue as a backdoor to remove X and claim that broader subject matter you already gave up. That's what prosecution history estoppel is about, and recapture enforces it in the reissue context.
Okay, so how does a patent owner avoid this? Let's say they did make a mistake in how they wrote the claim, maybe unrelated to X, and they want to fix it via reissue, potentially broadening it slightly. How do they do that without triggering recapture? What's the actual rule?
The MPP lays out essentially a test. It's often framed as 3 steps, but the core idea is this. First, are the reissue claims actually broader than the issued patent claims? Usually, yes, that's the goal. Second, does that broadening relate to subject matter that was surrendered? That's the key check. And third, to avoid recapture, even if the answer to 2 is yes, the claims have to be narrowed in a specific way. The reissue claim must keep, and this is the crucial part, the entirety of the limitation that was added back then, specifically to overcome the rejection.
Hold on, the entirety. So you find the exact feature or features that convince the examiner, the X from your example. You have to keep all of that specific feature in the new reissue claim, untouched.
That's the rule. If you do that, if the reissue claim includes the complete limitation that formed the basis for overcoming the prior art rejection, then you generally avoid recapture.
Even if other parts of the claim are now broader than they were originally.
Yes, even if the reissue claim is broader in some other aspect, an aspect that wasn't part of that specific surrender. You honored the core bargain regarding limitation X, so the law allows you to fix other unrelated drafting errors.
Wow, okay. But determining the entirety of that limitation sounds potentially really difficult. What if the prosecution history is messy? How does the examiner know exactly which part of an amendment was the critical part for allowance?
That's why reviewing the file wrapper is so critical and, frankly, painstaking for the examiner. They have to look at exactly what the applicant argued. What reasons did the examiner give for the rejection? What specific features did the applicant point to in their arguments to overcome it?
So you read the arguments.
Right. If the applicant explicitly said, adding element C distinguishes over the prior art, then C is likely the key limitation. If they argued it's the combination of C and D that provides the unexpected result, then both C and D probably need to stay. It hinges on the clear record of the surrender.
Okay, this makes the ABC example from the MPP absolutely vital. Let's walk through that carefully.
Yeah, it's a classic illustration. So, scenario. Original application claims just the combination AB.
Okay, simple term.
Examiner rejects it, maybe based on prior art showing AB or something close. The applicant responds. They amend the claim to add element C, so the claim becomes ABC. And based on adding C, the patent issues.
So C is the magic ingredient. C is what overcame the rejection. C represents the surrendered scope. Anything without C.
Precisely. And let's assume, for the example, that the prosecution history makes it crystal clear. C was the only basis argued for patentability over the art. There were no arguments relying just on B or A or some other feature. Just C.
Got it. Clear surrender. Focus on C. Now, the patent owner later realizes, the way we wrote A or B was too narrow. It doesn't cover what we really invented. They file for reissue. Their proposed reissue claim is A broadened C.
Notice what they did. They broadened the A part or the B part or both. So A broadened is wider than the original AB. But they kept C exactly as it was.
So C, the specific limitation added to get the patent, is still fully present.
Exactly. And according to the MPEP guidance based on case law, because the reissue claim A broad and C still includes C, the entirety of the limitation added to overcome the rejection, there is no recapture.
That's pretty remarkable. Even though the AB part is now wider than it was in the issued patent because the specific surrendered element C remains, the deal is considered honored. The broadening happened in a part unrelated to the surrender.
That's precisely the logic. It allows correction of genuine drafting errors, like making A or B too narrow by mistake, without letting the patentee effectively reverse the deliberate surrender of subject matter that lacked C. It's a mechanism designed to fix true errors while strictly policing that prosecution history estoppel.
It really highlights a tightrope walk in MPEP Section 1412, balancing the need to fix real errors made without deceptive intent against strictly enforcing these boundaries, so reissue doesn't become a total do-over.
Absolutely. Reissue is the tool for these more substantive corrections, right? Broadening claims, dealing with the fallout of surrender via recapture analysis, or maybe claiming those overlooked aspects we talked about.
Yeah. So thinking about this for you, the listener, we've gone through the complexity of Section 1412, the recapture rules, the original disclosure needs, it sounds like a lot. But is reissue the only way to fix any mistake in a patent?
Oh, that's a great point. No, absolutely not. All this complexity we've discussed, recapture, broadening analysis, it really comes into play when you're dealing with the substantive scope of the claims in relation to the disclosure and the prosecution history.
What about, like, simple stuff? A typo in the claim? Or maybe the examiner made a clear clerical error printing the patent?
Exactly. For those kinds of mistakes, clear clerical or typographical errors, minor things that are obvious from looking at the record, there's often a much, much simpler path.
Which is?
The certificate of correction. You'll see references to it in other parts of the MPP, like sections 1481 or 1402. It's a different mechanism entirely.
Okay, so how do you know which one applies? Reissue versus certificate of correction?
The big difference really comes down to the nature and effect of the error. Reissue generally requires showing an error without any deceptive intention, but it deals with things that affect the substantive scope, making claims broader, fixing issues related to surrendered subject matter. Certificate of correction is for, well, correcting the certificate itself. Obvious errors, mistakes in names or numbers, things that don't fundamentally change the invention's claimed scope or require revisiting prosecution history arguments.
So it's like using a scalpel versus a bandage. Reissue is major surgery for scope problems, potentially involving recapture. Certificate of correction is for fixing surface wounds, the obvious little mistakes.
That's a really good analogy. So the provocative thought to leave you with is this. Before you even start down the complex path of MPP Section 1412, worrying about broadening limitations and the whole recapture doctrine, take a step back. Ask yourself, what kind of error am I actually trying to fix? Is it something that truly changes the boundaries of the invention in a way that might conflict with the original disclosure or what was surrendered? Or is it, just a typo, an obvious slip-up? Because if it's the latter...
Yeah, then the much simpler certificate of correction might be the right tool, and you can avoid the whole reissue drama.
Exactly. The solution might depend less on the mistake itself and more on the kind of fix it requires. Knowing the difference is critical in practice.
A fantastic and very practical point to end on. Thanks for navigating us through the complexities of MP 1412 today.
My pleasure.
And thank you for joining us on the deep dive. We'll see you next time.